The one with the Halloween party is the sixth episode of the eighth season of Friends. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And I think visually it's one of the most memorable episodes. I think it's one of those episodes where you can see a clip from pretty much any scene after the first 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, and it's instantly recognizable. And it's really good fun. So as always, I will go through things and share some thoughts. There will be spoilers. I'm going to go through things chronologically. Usually when I discuss Friends, I will group my notes by part of the narrative and I'll talk about each part of the narrative in turn. But with this, everything is connected together really well, so I'll just go through things in chronological order. And it starts off with Monica and Chandler announcing that they've decided to have a Halloween party and everybody has to dress up. Phoebe then bumps into Ursula. We find out Ursula is getting married and Phoebe invites Ursula to the costume party. And then we are at the party and everybody's dressed up. Monica's Catwoman and Phoebe's Supergirl and Chandler's the Pink Rabbit. And this is quite interesting because apparently he loved the Velveteen Rabbit as a child. But that never really came up when he bought the Velveteen Rabbit for, well, just on the off chance you haven't seen that episode. At some point he buys the Velveteen Rabbit for somebody and it never really came up as being his childhood favourite or a book that he loved. So a bit of an error there, but he looks great. Joey then comes over and he's dressed as Chandler, which I love, and Rachel is wearing a dress that she won't get to fit in for much longer, so she's giving out candy to the kids. She's enjoying her time, and at some point a child says that she loves her and hugs her, and Rachel gives her all the candy. It's very sweet. Ross arrives as a potato. He is Spudnik, which I think is brilliant. And Mona arrives and she knows his costume at one point, and Chandler tells him to marry her, which is probably not advice to give to Ross. Phoebe is at the party and she gets to meet Eric. This is Sean Penn's character, Ursula's fiancé, and we find out that actually Eric and Ursula only met a couple of weeks ago, and they have so much in common. And Eric's listing off all of these things that Ursula's done that they have in common, and these are definitely not things Ursula has done. So Phoebe's got a bit of a dilemma. Eric seems like a really nice person. Clearly Ursula has tricked him and he thinks that she's somebody she isn't, and they're getting married after 2 weeks. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. Monica and Joey are, I don't often say Monica and Joey together like that. It's not a duo we get to see that often together on their own. They're talking about who would win in a fight between Chandler and Ross, and we'll come back to them in a second. Gunther then arrives with a bag of candy for Rachel because she gave all the candy to the girl who said she loved her. And Gunther's dressed as Charlie Brown, which I love. That is so adorable. Absolutely adored it. And Rachel is giving out the candy again, but because she'd been giving out money previously, a kid had heard this and started demanding money, and she tells him to shut up and makes him cry. And obviously that upsets Rachel because she doesn't want to make a child cry. She's trying to connect with the children. But if a child is going to be demanding money and you make them cry, I don't care, because that child is demanding and spoilt and doesn't deserve money if they're going to behave like that. Not that I'm saying it was reasonable for Rachel to tell him to shut up, but at the same time, he deserved it. So I don't care. And then we have the arm wrestle between the Velveteen Rabbit and Spudnik, and it's a really lovely moment. The bloopers, I won't spoil them by saying what happens, but the bloopers for this scene are so funny. They're so worth watching, and it just enhances the experience when I watch this scene because I can see the bloopers in my head. And ultimately what happens here is that Chandler lets Ross win because, well, Mona is behind him talking to Joey, so Ross is obviously panicking. He's going to lose Mona. But I will say, if a woman is worth keeping, she's not going to be somebody who's going to look down on you for losing an arm wrestling competition. So while I can understand Ross's panic, if Mona were to leave him because he lost an arm wrestling competition, she's not somebody who's worth being with. But nevertheless, Chandler, who is married and in a happy relationship, decided to let Ross win this one. And then Eric comes back to the party. He and Ursula had left because Ursula had to go to church, I believe was the excuse. And he came back to get her purse, which she'd left. And Phoebe realises, I can't let you go through with this, at least without you knowing the truth. And I think that that's fair. I think it's a very difficult situation Phoebe was in, but at the same time, worst case scenario, they don't get married and a 2-week relationship is over. So it's not exactly a big risk for Phoebe to take, and she does. She starts pulling all of these things out of Ursula's purse to highlight that she's not the person Eric thought she was. And it's a little dramatic, and I guess it's a little emotional as we can kind of see the life being sucked out of Eric as he realizes what has happened. But there's definitely a nice amount of comedy in there as well. And it's a sweet moment between Phoebe and Eric as well. So I think that was definitely the right decision on Phoebe's part, and bad on Ursula for tricking him like that. That's not acceptable. And then we end with Chandler and Monica having an arm wrestling competition, and Monica is very strong. It's a really fun episode. I think the costumes make it better. I'm not saying I would like it less if it was a Halloween party but they weren't wearing costumes. But at the same time, I kind of am saying that because visually it is such a treat. The costumes look amazing. I'd love to know if they had any other ideas for costumes as well, or if those were their first decisions. I'd love to see if there were any costumes they'd maybe considered but decided not to go with. But I think they made the right choices because everybody looked really, really great. And Gunther as Charlie Brown was adorable. So I think it's a really solid episode. Needless to say, I think that the one with the Halloween party is a brilliant episode of Friends. So fun, so entertaining. Nice to have a little break from so much focus on Rachel and the pregnancy as well. And just to have a bit fun and a bit of lightheartedness. I think it works really well. The decor as well, the Halloween decorations are wonderful. So I love it. The one with the Halloween party is an absolute joy. I don't know if I'd say it's one of my all-time favourites. Biased because I love Halloween. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Either way, the one with the Halloween party is, all things considered, a pretty perfect episode of Friends.